Hey guys, what's up? In this video I want to compare the specs and features of the Sony Xperia T2 Ultra versus HTC One Max. First I want to start off with the display. So we get a 6-inch display on the T2 Ultra versus a slightly lower 5.9-inch display on the HTC One Max. And in terms of the resolution, the T2 Ultra has a 720p HD display versus a 1080p HD display on the One Max. In terms of the pixel density, we get a 245 ppi display on the T2 Ultra versus 373 ppi of display on the HTC One Max, almost 100 more ppi than the T2 Ultra. And the HTC One Max has also Super LCD 3 display, which is amazingly awesome, versus a TFT display on the T2 Ultra. And of course, do keep in mind the Sony Xperia T2 Ultra is not a waterproof phone, so it's a cheap budget device from the Sony. And also in terms of the software, we get Android 4.3 on both devices, whereas we have also Sense 5.5 UI on the One Max. In terms of the weight, the One Max is a lot more heavier as compared to the T2 Ultra at about 217 gram versus 172 gram on the T2 Ultra. And in terms of the hardware, we get a Qualcomm Snapdragon 400 processor on the T2 Ultra versus a Qualcomm Snapdragon 600 processor on the HTC One Max. The Qualcomm Snapdragon 400 processor on the T2 Ultra is a quad-core clocked at 1.4 GHz, whereas the quad-core the 1.7 GHz we get on the One Max. And also in terms of the GPU, we get Adreno 305 low GPU versus a slightly higher Adreno 320 GPU. Of course, it's not the best GPU on the market in terms of the Android market, as I say, because we have Adreno 330 GPU in Snapdragon 800. So yeah, Adreno 320 will get you good gaming, but not on this phone, because HTC One Max has a almost 6-inch display, 1080p display, and it is a very powerful display. So this device should have a Snapdragon 800 processor to handle this display, but you know, they have put the previous processor, so I'm not sure. But yeah, the gaming performance will not be good on this phone. And also in terms of the system memory, or you can say RAM, we get 1 GB of RAM on the T2 Ultra versus 2 GB of RAM on the One Max. In terms of the built-in storage, we get 8 GB of built-in storage on the T2 Ultra with 4.8 GB user available, which is pretty annoying. And also on the One Max, we get 16 GB of internal memory as well as 32 GB of internal memory with microSD slot up to 64 GB. And of course, we get the microSD slot up to 32 GB on the T2 Ultra. And in terms of the battery capacity, we got 3000 mAh battery capacity on the T2 Ultra versus 3300 mAh battery, slightly higher battery capacity on the One Max. And finally, we're going to be taking a look at the camera. So we got 13 megapixel camera with LED flash on the T2 Ultra versus a 4 Ultrapixel camera on the One Max, and both can record 1080p HD video at 30 frames per second, whereas the One Max can record 720p video at 60 frames per second, which is also a good feature. And also in terms of the front-facing camera, we get 2 megapixel front-facing camera, 2.1 megapixel front-facing camera on the One Max, and we get a VGA quality front-facing camera on the T2 Ultra. So yeah, that's it guys. It was comparison of the specs between these two giants. So yeah, of course, T2 Ultra is, I think, available in the market, in some markets. So yeah, it was announced on 14th January 2014, last month, whereas the One Max was announced on 14th October 2013. So yeah, thanks for watching guys, and subscribe for daily tech videos, and I will see you in my next one. Peace out.